Welcome back to the YouTube home of Peter Pan lore and Peter Pan facts with me, your Peter Pan hobbyist and enthusiast, using my Peter Pan hobbyist enthusiast brain and knowledge to bring you fun facts, lore and trivia, talk about the world of the Neverland, the story of Peter Pan, answer you guys' questions, dive into lore, dive into theories, and today we are going to be talking about something that a lot of you asked about on a live stream we did, and also a bunch of you have put in the comments of my TikTok videos. I did a little video over there, but to be honest it was getting real long because I had a lot of things to say, so instead I'm making you a full video essay about it. Small caveat, and if you've read the title you know what this video is about. Small caveat, I have not finished this yet. It's still a work in progress, and if anyone would like to volunteer to come and be a playtester with me for a few hours one day, on Discord, online, whatever, let me know and I'll probably arrange that. In the meantime, I will be updating it as I go, but this is the basic structure that I feel ready and happy to share with you guys because, hell, you asked, you were interested, and so we're doing a full video about it. So this video today is about a Neverland setting for an RPG game. Now, originally I started thinking about it as just a D&D setting, which I have done before and will happily do again. If anyone wants to play a one-shot with me, let me know. I started it as just a D&D setting, a sort of Neverland D&D setting, which I've played before and will happily do again. If anyone wants to do a one-shot, literally just D&D set in the Neverland, bring your OCs, absolutely we can do that. Let me know in the comments down below. But as I started thinking about it, I started getting into more of the mechanics of how a game could work, and I started leaving Dungeons and Dragons behind and sort of creating my own thing instead. So it's still very D&D inspired, very RPG, but I have created a few sort of rules and different character sheets and even classes and races. So essentially I've created my own little game. Again, it's not completely finished though. There are a few bits and pieces I'd like to add, like some feats and some traits that I haven't quite worked out yet. But with a lack of play testers, this is as far as I have got. So if you would like to come and be a play tester for this game, if you'd like to come and sit for a few hours with me on a Discord call with a bunch of other people, then let me know in the comments down below and I'll try and arrange that at some point. But in the meantime, I'm going to walk you through the basic overview of a Neverland RPG game that I have created. To start off then, in this game, I've decided that all the players will be playing as Lost Ones. These are people who have come to the Neverland. You can work with your GM to work out how you got there. Were you sent there because you were lost? Did you get lost and find your way there? Were you looking for it? Did you get washed up there, etc, etc? Any of those are absolutely fine. And this is why you are working together. Whether you are a new arrival or you've been there for a long time, you are all members of the Lost Ones gang. Next though, I want to talk you through the character sheet I have created. This is the one I have drawn. I might put a picture up on the screen so it's easier to see. I thought that, number one, I wanted to make it smaller and simpler, but also more chaotic. So it's got plenty of different things on it, but the first thing, the big thing I want to bring your attention to, or rather the small thing I want to bring your attention to, is the pockets system. So down in the corner, you've got your pockets. This is where you can keep your stuff. So you're playing as a lost one. This means that you don't really have loads of things about your person. You have a hideout, that kind of thing, but you can't really carry a lot of things. You can't be over encumbered so you cannot run, that kind of thing. So I have put that every character at the start of the game, and this could be edited later, has 5 spaces in their pockets. This includes your weapons, but does not include your armor, because of course you're wearing that. More about that later on. Obviously you have simple basic things on the character sheet, like you have character name, which I like to think goes in the middle. You know, it's the most exciting bit. It's you, your name, so it goes bang in the middle. We also have a system I've come up with called your target and your energy. Now this is basically your hit points and your armor class. So your target is essentially your armor class. It's the target. People are trying to get that number or above to hit you, and your energy is how much energy you have left. So essentially that's your hit points. I've also come up with a system, and we need to play test this, where if you get down to 0 in your energy, then you have 3 acorns. So think Wendy Darling when she had the acorn button around her chain on her neck and she got struck by the arrow that saved her life. So I'm thinking to play on that. Not literally, although it could be quite fun to have everyone literally have 3 acorn buttons, but anyway, maybe they crack. Ooh, that's interesting. So a literal acorn button that you're carrying about your person, it cracks every time you go down to 0. Interesting, we'll put a pin in that. But anyway, you have 3 acorn buttons. So if you go down to 0, you must cross off 1 of your acorn buttons. You've still got 2 left at this point, and there are 2 different ways for you to get revivified, essentially. Brought back to life, re-brought back to consciousness, whatever it is. So at this point, you're not necessarily outright dead. The first one is a creative way, and I'll get more into that in a second. A creative way to bring you back is involving all of the other players. They have to come together, do some roles, use their creativity to essentially create you and will you back into being. The second option is a bit more of a risk. Instead of having everyone on your team help you to come back to life with creativity, this one is all down to chance and you. You can call out, a bit like Peter did when Tinkerbell was dying, and ask all the children who are dreaming of the Neverland to clap their hands and save your life. Then you will do a certain roll, maybe on a d6 or a couple of d6s, and it will be completely up to fate. If they revive you, great. If not, you lose another acorn button and have to try over again. So you have 3 chances at that, or you can try and turn to the members of your team and get them to come and help you out. Once you've gone down to all 3 acorn buttons and they're all gone, I think that might mean permadeath, or we might have to get into something interesting about how you could come back, that kind of thing. Maybe there'll be ghosts in play. I haven't gone much beyond that because, well, I'm nice sometimes when I'm GMing and I don't tend to think about player death too much, so pin in that, more on that potentially at a later date. But moving on to the rest of the character sheet. Obviously I've left place for your story, this is your backstory, so you can add to that. You can also go onto another page if you need to. I've got space for your class and your race. I will go into those a bit later on because I've created some options for us. And then we have the 6 skills that I have created for this game, so bear with me here. So we have attack. 3 guesses what this is used for. Your attack skill is used for attacking people when you are fighting. It can also be used for other things as you're going around the island. It isn't just reserved for fighting, but it is predominantly to attack or to hit something or just to cause damage. Then we have defend. 3 guesses what this one's for. Obviously this one is a bit like shielding and protection. It is used for defending either yourself or others. Predominantly others though. I think you get more perks if you're using it to defend other people and to help others. So this can be for defense in battle or defense from something that's happening. It might not necessarily be in combat itself, that kind of thing. Then we have hide, similar to defense, but different in that this time you're not deflecting anything, you are literally trying to pass without being seen. For all the LARP friends. So using this, you can camouflage yourself and others, you can pass without being heard, pass without being seen, things like this. You could also use it to hide items or bury treasure, that kind of thing, or to cover your tracks where you've been moving. Next up is communicate. This one's a bit like persuasion in D&D, so this is how you communicate with people, how you communicate with your friends, with your enemies, how persuasive you are, how you can talk people down, how you could rile people up. It could be used to dissuade an argument, or it could be used to incite an argument and incite trouble. So either way you want to work that, you could be sort of very diplomatic with it, or you could be quite evil with communicate as well. It depends on how you want to play it. Then we have create. Now I talked about this earlier with the reviving people. So create is a special skill I have created because on the Neverland, a lot of it is about imagination and play and fantasy. This is a skill I think could be very important depending on how you use it. A bit like communicate, it could be used for evil or it could be used for good or neutrality, that kind of thing. You're going to create things, create games, create play, create adventures, and just I can't quite explain how this will work, but do you get the concept? Creativity, imagination, that kind of thing. And last up is the search skill. This one pretty much does what it says in the tin, so it can be used for searching for things. Whether you're looking for something far away, scanning the horizon, searching for clues, looking for footprints, looking around you, trying to see where someone else has gone, or you're searching for a good place to camp, something someone might have left behind, many different things. So that is the search skill. So that is the character sheet that I've created and all the different skills I've created to go along with it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And now I'll move on to the classes and the races I've created. There's been a lot of creativity going into this, as you can tell, and it will not stop. It will not go away. I started thinking about it. This was just supposed to be a really short video on how would you turn the Neverland into a D&D setting. Well, my friend, I should probably do a video on that as well, shouldn't I? Yeah, remind me in the comments. I will do a video on literally just turning the Neverland into a D&D setting. But all right, here we go. So here are the races I have created. I may well add some more, but right now there are 3 different types, if you will. Number 1 is human or humanoid. You are a mortal from a mortal world. You've probably heard stories of the Neverland, maybe even dreamed of it. Do you have dreams of the island yourself? If yes, tell the GM some things that you have imagined which you could maybe find on the island. If you choose to be a human, you get some perks to your create skill, but you get some negatives to your communicate because you haven't been to the Neverland before, and so you wouldn't know how to say, speak the fairy language or what the gnomes are like, that kind of thing. Each race also gets different perks to their energy, which ultimately everyone will roll for, and then you'll add on all your additional stuff. Option number 2 is to be a fae creature. Here I have said, you come from a fae realm and are used to magic and fantastical creatures. Have you visited the Neverland before? If yes, talk to the GM about any friends or foes you might have made. If not, what have you heard about it? Now within the fae race, there are 3 options. Option number 1 is you can be an elf. You can be whatever type of elf you want. You can be a tall Lord of the Rings style elf or a little sort of Christmassy elf, whatever you fancy being. They get bonuses to their communicate because of course they are Fae, they know how to speak to people like the Neverland creatures, and also to their search as well. The second option is to be a faun. They too get some bonuses to their communicate and their creative, that kind of thing, because again, Fae-like creatures very used to it, this kind of world will suit them. And the third option within the Fae race is to be fairy-blooded. So you're not a fairy, you're not a tiny little fairy, you are just fairy-blooded. This can be up to your interpretation, so talk to the GM about how you would like that to work. These guys I've given bonuses to their hiding skill and to their communicate. The third race type is a part creature race. So you are a part creature, you know of magic and of the Neverland Island, and have some extra strengths here and there. Speak to the GM about any friends and family you may have or have visited on the island, or have just heard of on the island. The options I've given so far are you can be a part bear, which gives you bonuses to attack and your search, a part big cat, which gives you much big bonuses to your attack, part bird, which gives you bonuses to your search, part merfolk, which gives you bonuses to hiding and communicating, or, my favourite, part unicorn, which gives you bonuses to your create, although your hide does go down a little bit, because, well, unicorns are magical and sparkly and people can see them. Next up, we have the classes, and I have created 3, just to keep things simple for now. I may well add some more on. So, option number 1 is you can be a combatant. Combatants are trained, highly skilled, and always ready to fight. They cannot be snuck up on, but they can get distracted by a fight when they are in one or near one. Combatants get big bonuses to their attack and defend, and I'm going to make some extra little feats and traits for them as well, but I haven't got that far just yet. Option number 2 is story weaver. So these are true creatives who love to tell stories or create art or sew garments or just use their imagination. They are a natural fit to the Neverland even if they've never been there before. You can create almost anything out of almost anything, but you can get distracted and lost in your daydreams sometimes. They of course get massive bonuses to their create and to their communicate as well. And I'll be adding some feats and traits and bonuses on for them as well too. Last up we have explorer. So explorers always have loved to explore, to uncover mysteries of new places, to dive into every environment. Your mind is a map and you want to discover everything, though you can get distracted by new interests and lose focus on the task at hand. They get big bonuses to their search, a little bit to their hide as well, and possibly some create too. And again, they will all be having some feats and traits and bonuses added much later on. Now I will move on to the option of items you can put in your pockets, and we'll do armor as well, because why not? I'm just mentally going through a D&D book and trying to think what is next. So here are the options I've got so far for things you can put in your pockets. And remember, at the start of the game, you've only got space for 5 items. So you've got weapons. Now, I have not included any sort of pew-pew in this. The pirates might have them, but I might restrict them to just having cannons on their ship. So as long as you stay away from that, it's fine. This is partly my personal preference because I've never been a fan of pew-pews in real life or in games, and I just tend to avoid them. And also, it's a fantasy setting. I don't think you need them. If you do want to include them though, that's absolutely fine, but I would say if you're going as far as Percy from Critical Role, you've gone a bit too far. Think older style weapons, nothing that's too rapid fire, something that you have to load every single time. That's more Neverland appropriate. So the options of weapons that I've got, now each of these can do certain amounts of damage and different rolls, that kind of thing, but we won't worry about that. I will just tell you what they've got. So your options are daggers, slingshots, bows and arrows, swords, as in big swords, and a net. Now the net doesn't necessarily do damage, it's more of a sort of grappling mechanic, but I do think it could be quite fun. I've also got a list of items, which I am still adding to, but here are the ones I've got so far. So you've got items like a spyglass, which can give you bonuses to your search rolls, a sewing kit, which could give you bonuses to creative rolls, depending on what you're doing, a notebook or a sketchbook, which could give you advantage on create or communicate, depending on how you used it, a spark kit used to make fire. Another option is a memento of home. So some people might not want to use a pocket space for this, but I kind of think it's a nice thing to have for your character. Talk to the GM whatever you want it to be, obviously within reason. You could have sort of a photo or a diary or a coin, something like that. Something small and pocket sized, but you could have a memento of home. And I've also got a water skin or a food bag, that kind of thing. Now we move on to armor, and I've created 3 different types of armor, and you can only wear one at a time, so you cannot stack your armor, you have to pick one. Option number 1 is Animal Hide. This gives you a big bonus to your defensive skill. Option number 2 is Tree Sap and Leaves. This gives you a smaller defend bonus, but it also adds to your hide skill. And the last option is Bits and Bobs, which I just thought was hilarious to imagine. So it can look however you like. It gives you a small defense bonus, but it also gives you a bonus to your creative skill. This is because I imagine it to be lots of, as it says, bits and bobs. So you can pull things off, use it to create. You're almost a walking sewing box, that kind of thing. Next up then, we'll talk about playing the game itself. So in this section, I'm going to give you some of the rules of play I've come up with, some of the things that might be challenges for you, a bunch of the different characters you can interact with, some of the locations, and just an idea of some adventures you could do. I will include, if I ever publish this, I'll include some basic adventure ideas so that if you don't want to create the whole thing yourself as a GM, you don't have to. But I'll also give you some just starting points so you can run off and make your own. Point number 1 is in the fights. I have, of course, come up with a rules of play system because, as you may remember from some of my TikTok videos, there are some rules of play on the Neverland, and one of those I have twisted a little bit in this. So here are some of the rules of play. Rule number 1 is pirates always attack last, no matter who they are fighting. Unless, of course, they're attacking other pirates, in which case I guess it would just cancel each other out and they just roll straight for it. Rule number 2 is that creatures or part creatures or animals, they can decide whether they want to go first or last behind the pirates. This is an interesting mechanic, and I remember using something similar in D&D games where you've decided to just go last or hold your action in combat, that kind of thing, where you want to sort of maybe lull out the opponent or see what they're doing first, make them expend some of their energy before you start attacking them. That's an interesting one, I think, at least. And rule number 3 so far, because I may well add more, any Fey creatures can choose to go first if they are fighting against humans. This could get a little complicated, I suppose, if a Fey creature is in your party and you're fighting against pirates, and one of the pirates is human or a few of the pirates are human, but then arguably the pirates are going last anyway, so the Fey creature could choose whether they want to go at the top of the round or just go where they rolled. A little bit of this will be up to the GM discretion. These are more guidelines than actual rules, I guess. What about some of the inhabitants on the island? Who are some characters and creatures you could interact with? Well, obviously we have got the pirates. I've put that these people will automatically start as your enemies. So if you meet them, they are going to automatically assume you are their rival and probably try to initiate combat. So it'll be entirely up to your party whether you want to avoid them, hide from them, try to communicate with them, that kind of thing. But you have to be wary that ultimately, if pirates spot you, they will treat you as an enemy and very likely attack. Option number 2 is the Old Witchy Lady. Now this is a play on a character who is referenced very quickly in the original lore. She is the old lady with the hooked nose. I love her. I'm obsessed with her. We know nothing about her. I like to imagine that she is a magical, mystical old lady who came to the Neverland as a young child and then just sort of hung around. She wasn't necessarily a lost one. She was just there. Maybe her family got shipwrecked and she just carried on living there. The island accepted her and she, you know, became sort of this cool witchy lady. I imagined her with a big cauldron. I imagined her having built a little hut where she sits on the veranda in a little rocking chair with cups of tea and a big cauldron, and she welcomes people. They can come and have a chat if they want to, and she doesn't really get involved in any of the fighting or the adventures, but she could do. And if someone annoys her, she can use her magic and blast them away, that kind of thing. So I've put her as, she starts as a friend or a neutral, depending on how the GM wants to play it. There are also merfolk. Now, obviously you are only going to really meet these if you go near bodies of water, particularly the Mermaid's Lagoon or the ocean, possibly a big lake as well. I've put that the merfolk will automatically start as an enemy, so you've got to be quite careful of them, but they could be neutral as well. However, if you want to include this game mechanic, if it is the turn of the moon, the mermaids are out for blood, and you cannot go near them, and particularly do not go near the Mermaid's Lagoon. Other creatures that you might find on the Neverland are the Neverbirds. I've put that they will start initially as your friends, and if Peter is with you, definitely a friend. However, they might be a little bit more wary of you, leaning towards neutral. Not outright enemy, just neutral, if they've got eggs or chicks with them. So enjoy that as a GM, play with that mechanic if you want. And then we've got just creatures in general. You've got large creatures, medium creatures, or small creatures. This can include pretty much anything. It can be talking creatures, it can be non-talking creatures, lions, tigers, bears, unicorns, anything you can imagine, moles, voles, rabbits, mice, birds of any description, cats, that kind of thing. Got a cat who randomly ended up on the Neverland, a ship's cat that got washed ashore and ended up on the Neverland, that kind of thing. So small, medium or large, any type of creature you can pretty much imagine. And I will leave it up to the GM's discretion whether they are friend, enemy, or neutral, and whether that stance can change. And then we have a whole subsection of characters that I have just called Neverland Born. This is native inhabitants of the Neverland, so not anyone who came there, like the old lady, I don't think she counts as never born because she wasn't born there. This is literal characters who were born and bred on the Neverland. Maybe they've never left, they've never known anything different. So you can create whatever you want with them. You could have the descendants of Tiger Lily and her people many years in the future. You could be going back in time and visiting the Neverland way before Tiger Lily was even born herself, that kind of thing. This would also probably include some of the fairies, although some of them might have come from other places. And then you'd have the gnomes and other creatures and people like that. What about some locations then? What is on the Neverland? What could you do? What could you see? Where could you go? Well, I'm going to give you a list of loads of different places and options for you. This list is ever growing, and feel free to add whatever you like to it as a GM. Maybe if you're talking to your players about their backstory, their history with the Neverland and places and things they've imagined, incorporate those as well. But this is just the starter list. So we have got, obviously, the ocean. This is on all sides. It is an island, remember. This could include coral reefs and places where the mermaids live and other sea creatures live, underwater caves, that kind of thing, underwater treasure, sunk ships, anything you can imagine. Then you've got rivers and you've got Kids Creek, forests, mountains, jungles, tall trees, tiny trees, massive wide trees that it takes you half a day to walk around, that kind of thing. Just think of how a jungle would be different to a forest. I've also included the idea of 4 different wells. So a well in the north, the south, the east, and the west. These are just very critical key points where, number one, you can get safe drinking water, but also it's a meeting place. The wells don't move, even though everything else could be a little bit chaotic. The wells stay where they are, so you could arrange to meet someone at a different well. Obviously, along with the ocean, you've got beaches. This isn't necessarily on every side of the island, possibly one big beach and a couple of little ones here and there, maybe some hidden rock pool beaches, that kind of thing. Be as creative with it as you want. You've got the Mermaid's Lagoon, and with that comes Maruna's Rock. You've got caves as well, up in the mountains, down in the water, anywhere you want to put them. Hideouts as well, and these are various hideouts. Maybe some old lost ones hideouts, maybe some new ones, wherever they want to be living now. That'll be up to the GM's decision. You could also have hideouts for native inhabitants of the island. Where do the gnomes live? Where does everyone else live? Where do the creatures go at night? All the different hideouts and dens and homes, houses, buildings, whatever it is. Maybe a little port for the ships, anything that you want. So hideouts and sort of bases for people to live in. Obviously, you've got the pirate ship as well, the old witchy lady's house. Maybe some floral fields as well, or patches of flowers, vegetables growing, that kind of thing. Maybe there are vegetable patches scattered around the Neverland. And of course, whenever the season is right, the frozen lake. So this could be a lake that is always frozen over, or a different lake every time when the season moves. If you want to go a dark route, you could also include grave sites, but I'll leave that up to the discretion of the GM and the players about how dark you want to go. Another thing I want to talk to you about is a game mechanic I've included, which is called the seasons. Now, there are 2 different ways that you can use this, or you can edit it and do whatever you want with it, but the 2 ideas I had is the simple setting, so the everyday user setting, or the hype up the chaos, make it really complicated, possibly a little bit more dangerous setting. So the fun thing about the seasons in the lore of the Neverland is that they are forever changing. You could go to get water from a well. See, the wells are in the original lore, or at least one of them is. You could walk to get water from the well, J.M. Barrie describes, and you could experience all the different seasons as you go and come back, meaning that they are constantly moving and in flux all the time on the Neverland. Now, this could be quite fun to play with, because it means that while you are adventuring around, you also have to be aware of the seasons around you. There could be a rainstorm that hits, there could be hail, there could be snow, there could be something that stops your progress. Maybe you get caught up in a sort of, not quite tornado, but a big gust of wind that slowly blows you off course. Or if you're out to sea, the seasons could stop you there as well. Or if you're trying to cross a big, huge river, you just maybe wait for the winter to come and it frosts over. Or maybe as you're trying to get across a really long lake, suddenly summer is coming just around the corner and you have to run before the ice melts under your feet. Now that could be quite complicated. I understand the GM will already be doing quite a lot of things, so you could include a mechanic where the players roll for it whenever they want to. However, you could also just do it a very simple way, where the weather changes once a day. And I think that's fine. You could not change it at all. You could just have whatever you fancy. The Neverland could always be in spring, whatever you want. But a simple version, I would say, is that you roll for the weather once a day. Or you could play the chaotic version, and you could change the seasons once every in-game hour. So it could be up to the GM's discretion when time has passed, or just, hell, change the seasons whenever you fancy it. Or you could have a timer ominously counting down in the middle of the table, and every time the timer runs out, boom, the seasons change again. But again, that is entirely up to you guys. GM, talk to your players, players talk to your GM, decide how much chaos you want, and again, if it gets too much, you can always dial it back a little bit. I've got an idea for how you might roll for the seasons too. So you would roll the d6 and that would decide what season it is, and then within that, you'd roll another d6 and that could decide what specific weather you get. So you could roll and get, say, winter, and then you roll to see whether there is frost, snow, or a blizzard. Within spring, you could roll for a light breeze, warmth, or rain. Within summer, you could roll for just sunshine or a heat wave or even a sandstorm rolling in from the beaches. And then within autumn or fall, you could roll for rain or a storm or strong wind and hail, that kind of thing. So keeping the players on their toes if you want to add that level of chaos. Lastly, I will talk to you about some building block ideas for creating adventures on the Neverland. If you want, I could do a full video where I talk about creating adventures themselves. This might lean into the D&D world game I might do, or alternatively, if enough of you want to playtest this game, we could just record the audio of us playtesting this on Discord, and then I could play that and show you the adventures I made. Any of those could happen. Let me know what you want in the comments down below, but here are some building blocks for where you could start. So a really simple one that could be quite fun is to explore a shipwreck. Now this could be any ship that you want. You could bring in a ship from any type of fantasy world, you could create your own, or of course you could use the Jolly Roger if you want to go for that one. I would put it somewhere in the shallows, and one of the mechanics you could have is that the ship can be explored, but when the tide comes in, the ship is underwater. And that could be the whole mission, that could be the entire thing. But if you want to make it a sort of longer adventure, you can make whatever they find in the wreckage lead to something else, somewhere else on the island, leading to, I don't know, a place to dig for treasure or just something else that's happening, and it bounces you all the way around the island, which could be quite a fun way of getting you to see more places as you find a clue that leads you somewhere else, somewhere else, somewhere else. If you want to be very mean as a GM, then you could have the final clue lead them all the way back to the pirate ship, where it turns out that this one thing they never paid any attention to, because why would they, is the key to it all, and it's actually the important thing where if you pick it up, it opens something, or behind the painting they never looked at was a safe, or just something mean like that. But you don't have to, but as a starting point, a sort of timed, the tide comes in, the tide goes out, get to the wreckage of a pirate ship, that kind of thing, or it doesn't have to be a pirate ship, it could just be a ship. I think that's a pretty cool place to start an adventure. Continuing with an underwater theme, you've also got the Mermaid's Lagoon, you've got Marooner's Rock, you could have to rescue someone from there, maybe they've started to go under the water, you could have to go and find one of the skeletons of someone who didn't make it off Marooner's Rock, go and find something they've got hidden about their person, or count the ribs or something, I don't know. Or you could have underwater treasure chests, you could go into the mermaid's grottos in the coral reefs, you could find an underwater cave, you could have to dive down into an underwater cave entrance in order to get through the caves and up into the mountains, or you could start in the mountains and end up underwater. You could have to fight the mermaids, befriend the mermaids, avoid the mermaids, and other sea creatures as well. It's not just the mermaids down there. If you want to make it more chaotic, they could have to go at the turn of the moon, or not realize it's the turn of the moon until night falls, that kind of thing, when the mermaids become infinitely more dangerous. So anything to do with water, pretty much. Remember that there's loads of different creatures and ships and characters all the way through that, either in the water or around the water, anything on the beaches too, again with a treasure hunt, so remember that one. Another option for adventures relies very heavily on your player characters and what their backstories are. So some of your player characters might have ties to characters and people and places on the Neverland. They could go to explore those, maybe find out more about a lost relative, maybe find someone and reunite with them, maybe find out something bad that happened to them, or find out they've left the Neverland and never came back and haven't been seen for many years. You could also have them recognizing places that they've dreamed about or been told about or seen pictures of, that kind of thing. Another adventure idea that I have, which sounds incredibly simple but would actually be incredibly complicated, I am just calling create the perfect game. And this would involve whatever you want. So your player characters have to use their create skill and their communicate skills, and they have to create a game. Maybe they're trying to distract someone from something else. Maybe they're trying to get as many creatures and characters and people on the Neverland involved as possible. Maybe they're trying to stop a fight. Maybe they just want to create the best game, but something is happening and they're trying to create the best game or adventure or just thing that's happening. Maybe Peter's coming back and they want to do something for him, that kind of thing. So create the best game. Do with that what you will. And another very basic one, but one that you can't really go far wrong with, is the very simple, stop the pirates. This can be from whatever they are doing. Maybe stop them existing, stop them from leaving, stop them from staying, stop them from, I don't know, being able to eat their dinner on time. Whatever you want to do. Fight the pirates, stop the pirates, hide the pirates, capture them all in nets, dig a big hole and get them all to fall in one at a time. Whatever you want to do, stopping the pirates is just generally a pretty fun one, I think. Alright, there we have it. That is pretty much everything I've come up with so far for the outline of my Neverland RPG game. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will definitely do a video where I do a full Dungeons & Dragons D&D Neverland setting. I will include some stats for some creatures, that kind of thing, some things that you could do, and I may well do another video where I just talk about adventures you could create for a Neverland setting, be it in this game, in a D&D setting, or any other way you want to play in the Neverland. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below, ask any questions that you've got, tell me any ideas, and if you would like to be a sort of play tester for this at some point, then let me know as well, and I will try and get that organised. Oh, I've got to give it a name! This game needs a name! I don't have one. I feel like that should be step one. Name your game. I have no idea. I've just been calling it the Neverland RPG Vague Idea Game, which obviously will not look very good on a box. I don't want to call it The Lost Ones. That sounds really boring. Nothing as basic as like Island Adventures, because what is that? I don't know. I guess. While pans away the Lost Ones plate. I have no idea. I will workshop that, and if you have any ideas for what you would call this game, let me know in the comments down below. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye!